Good morning. Today is 29th of August. This is session 2, meditation 103. Let's set our intention, make aspiration by saying the four immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Let's just jump in with meditation today. I think most of you, if not all of you, have been with us a while. So let's do 15 minutes today. And when we're done with that, I'll do a little reading of a teaching. And then while I'm reading, besides questions, maybe what would be helpful today is to check in terms of the quality of the meditation, like what, how you felt it's going, not good or bad, just like the qualities of it, which technique you're using, how it's working, what's not, what you feel is not working, what works better than others, or impressions rather than judgments. It's easy to judge and say this was bad and this was good. That's not always so helpful. But in the meantime, let's start. I may talk through it. I probably will. I may not. 15 minutes. Starting now. I'm aware that I'm thinking, making plans for next week. I just found myself there. So the whole key to this practice is becoming aware of the fact that we're thinking. And then what do we do with that awareness? We can use the imagining the thought has arisen in the clear, limitless, stainless space of mind, which we imagine like a sky. And the awareness that it has arisen often takes away that kind of gravitational pull into it, that the thought takes us with us. And once we become aware, the recognition of the thought often breaks that spell and that pull. We have a little bit of separation from it and imagining it dissipate back into the sky from where it came. and kind of starting to taste what is that mind that recognizes the thought. So the thought arises from the mind, so the thought is mind, right? Or of mind, of the same substance. So what is recognizing the thought? What mind is recognizing the thought? More often than not, these thoughts will either be thoughts of the past, regret, or even sometimes rejoice of the past, reliving, regretting, wanting to change the past, or trying to control the future, either with anxiety or anticipation. So this practice is really about returning to the moment. And if you think about it, the humility of the moment, because in the moment, being in the moment, being in the present, there's a humility to that, where we're not feeling taking the reins of power to either change or alter the past or control the future. There is a humility in the moment, and just letting go into the moment and accepting that as really the only reality, and not in our kind of puppet master mode, even in regret when we look at the past, or resentment in the past, and because that's trying to control it in a way. And of course, the future, plans and hopes, as anticipation, anxiety. There's a sanity to the moment as well, to the present, a basic sanity. One could make the case that regret and remorse, or anxiety and anticipation, is almost some form of insanity, because it's not really based on anything real necessarily. I don't know this for sure, but I guess the word sanity comes with it is like cleanliness, right? Sanitation, health, I guess. There's a health, I guess, and cleanliness to the moment, uninfected, right? So we use our mind to look at mind, to return to the moment. Our mind healing itself in a way. self-cleaning oven. We talked about that last week. You can go back to the breath if that's the technique you want. Return to the breath. Focus. You could use the image of the cloud in the sky, or you can simply let mind become aware that it's thinking and then rest in whatever you relate to that spacious nature of mind as. That's a little bit more complicated. I might need to get some water. Back to the breath. Somebody remind me about homework, please. Nick or someone, so I don't forget. Back to the breath. This practice, we're creating spaciousness in our mind and the way we interface with ourselves and the world. We start doing it here, but we expand it to our interactions in the world with others, other beings, and ourselves. This spaciousness that I hope you're feeling, that you will feel eventually if you're not, is what we need to bring into life in general. Our buttons are pushed constantly by many different causes and conditions and forces and stimuli. And we need to train our mind to do just what we're doing now in the face of all those things. Back to the breath. Sometimes if your mind's feeling particularly busy, lower the angle of your gaze may help, lowering the angle of your gaze. Conversely, if you're feeling drowsy, raising the angle of your gaze may help wake you up. Have confidence and trust that you are doing this. You are doing this. You're not waiting to do this. You're doing this. It probably sounds silly, but there's something to it. Okay. Last week we talked a bit about, and you can write some comments if you want, equality or meditation and the techniques that you find are working. We talked about the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, that in samsaric existence we will suffer, and the cause of suffering, which we kind of define, we kind of looked at as the cause of suffering being delusion, the fact that we're deluded beings, that we don't comprehend and realize ultimate truth, which is non-duality, complete interdependence and things like that. Though that's a big, giant concept to grasp and very, 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 very abstract. So how do we start to just dip a toe in it? How do we taste that or get a whiff of it or a sense of it? Meditation is the beginning. It's almost preparing the mind, the ground for that. One exercise can be, you can practice in every aspect. Every moment of your life can in some ways become a practice. If we start to have the space in our mind to allow for that, if indeed the ultimate nature of reality is non-duality, interdependence, and the cause of suffering because we don't recognize that. And if we really start to accept that and think about that and ponder that, how do we relate to our immediate, first, instead of relating to the world and every single 9 billion people and whatever billions of beings on the planet as one, which, like I said, is abstract, how do we start with our immediate surroundings? Maybe the people we live with, who we interact with all day long, consistently. You could choose to do meditation where you see your partner as a, deity, as Chenrezig or Tara or something like that. Even just for a glimpse, because if we are, like we say, mind is Buddha, we all have Buddha nature, we all are Buddha ultimately, in our purified forms, then that's actually not a misperception or misconception of our loved one or partner or something like that. Then you leave your house, you walk out the door and you see your neighbor, maybe whom you know, who you have feelings with one way or the other. You don't like the way they don't pick up after their dog, or you do like them. They always say hello and friendly. And then you see someone you've never seen before, and you have a neutral reaction to that person because you don't know them and you don't have any experiences with them. But if if your mind can start to have a little bit of, say, starting to imagine them as Buddha, Chenrezig, Tara, and get out of our own way and our own judgments. That could be a way in. So homework would be, homework this week is for me and for all of you to consciously perform one act of generosity towards another sentient being, be it human or animal or whatever. But as you do it, imagine that this act of generosity goes beyond just for this person and expand almost as ritual. This generosity you're giving to all sentient beings. So maybe it's a homeless person and you're going to give them food or some money or something like that during that moment, not out loud and not towards this person. You don't have to let this person know that. To yourself, this act of generosity being one of the 5 paramitas, which is part of our ethical discipline, going along with our mindfulness. We talked about mindfulness on its own is a very abstract kind of subjective thing, but added to with ethical discipline, compassion, it becomes something else. When you bring wisdom into mindfulness, then that's practice. So during this act of generosity, in your mind, you're saying you're giving and hope that all beings benefit from this offering. So what we're doing is kind of, when you study acting, you do everything is like as if. So I'm on stage and I'm talking to my scene partner who's supposed to be my mother, and I'm acting as if this person's my mother. This person is not my mother, it's another actor who, I may like, I may dislike, I may not like being in the same room with, I might be in love with, whatever, but I'm acting as if it's my mother. And often they say in recovery programs like 12-step, like AA, act as if, you know what I mean? Act as if, fake it till you make it is another one they say, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of principles you learn when you start to practice the 12 steps or you're in recovery, and so your brain doesn't often believe all of them or can absorb all of them, but you almost act as if, like they talk about higher power in AA, and they tell you, if you don't believe in a higher power, act as if you do. So you start making steps towards recovery. It's the same thing here. It's very, very abstract and very hard to think about the concept of non-duality and the fact that we're deluded beings because we don't recognize that fact. That's huge and abstract and very difficult. But on a relative level, we have to interact with these other beings who, on an ultimate level, we're not separate from. But everything we've been conditioned towards has made us perceive them as separate. So you're almost becoming actors in your life. Not in a false way or a manipulative way or an ungenuine way. You're doing it as part of practice to be a benefit to all beings, really, what we're trying to do here. So that's your homework. Hopefully that makes sense. I have something to read today for you from Instagram that I really liked. It may be a degenerated age in general. Now Padmasambhava Guru Rinpoche, who brought Buddhism to Tibet, I guess in like the year 800 or something like that, he's known as the second Buddha, said that in the dregs of time, the degenerate age, he predicted that the Dharma would come to the West. He said actually the land of the red man, I guess referring to Native Americans. And so when the iron bird flies and the horse runs on wheels or something like that, that the Dharma would come to the West. Degenerate age means times of environmental catastrophe, which certainly we experience now and are experiencing, war, famine, violence, pandemic. These all were predicted by Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava. So certainly we're in some part of that, maybe the beginning of it, maybe the middle of it. It may be a degenerated age in general, but it is not a degenerated age for you. It is not a degenerated age for me, for you and me. It's a great opportunity, meaning the world needs you. And the world at this point in time needs you. It needs people who are committed to being benefit to all beings, who are committed to compassion and loving kindness and generosity and things like that, who are committed to waking up. I don't say this lightly. And young people have to know this, because that's our future, and we have to affect them and educate them in these ideas. This is by the Dalai Lama. A person's underlying outlook can certainly affect how he or she responds to life's adversities, threats, or dangers. For example, an attitude of kindness and compassion brings a sense of self-confidence and inner strength. It reduces fear. Often our response to a dangerous situation and ability to deal with fear depends more on our outlook and personal characteristics than on the nature of the situation itself. I thought that was very beautiful. Our friend Shamel has a great Pemalotus, Pemalotus on Instagram, one of the best Instagram pages in the world. I have one more. No, it's not loading for some reason. Maybe it expired or something. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. I want to thank you for being here this week. I find your classes to be amazing. Restart. I really need it. Horrible panic attacks put me in a dark place. Yeah. Anyone who's had panic attacks know how difficult they are. I can't say that coming here and meditating and doing these classes is going to cure panic attacks. I would never in a million years say that. I don't think it can hurt. I think it can be a component of helping, but those things, that kind of anxiety needs professional. I think professional care is a good place to start, where you talk about them specifically. I think meditation and certainly practice as a modality can help. But remember, there's a bigger picture, and we're here to be of benefit to all beings. So remember always that we're not just here for ourselves, but conditions like this need to be addressed so we can be of benefit to others. Like they say, when you're on a plane and they show you during the safety briefing, when that oxygen mask comes out, they always say, if you're with someone, a baby, a kid, or somebody who's, disabled or something, put yours on first, then you can help them. Kind of the same thing. We do have to take care of ourselves first before we can be a benefit, or that's definitely a something to consider. What are your thoughts on seeing colors, visions during meditation? Are they similar to thoughts and emotions that should be acknowledged? I've read different school about colors and visions. I don't know anything about that. I've never really seen colors and visions. I would imagine, yeah, I think, that's not the goal of meditation, certainly. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that, since it's not really I'm not saying it's bad or wrong or, whatever. But yeah, I think maybe not dismissed. We're not dismissing emotion and thought. We're kind of, like you say acknowledge and dismiss. It's more like acknowledge and let go. Dismiss kind of is a little bit more forcefully negative, I think. Acknowledge and just left alone. Dismissed has a little bit more volition to it. Yeah, go back, keep applying, the purpose of meditation is to work with the mind. You know, Garchen Rinpoche talks often about people have all kinds of experiences when they start to practice, and some practitioners even may have some kind of vision or clairvoyance or something like that, and he really says don't not to put too much stock into those things. Some high, lamas and realized beings, they have siddhis where they have clairvoyance or even some kind of physical kind of phenomenon that happens, and that those are minor siddhis. The great siddhi is bodhicitta, real loving kindness and compassion realized. I tried using a mantra. Do you still focus on the breath and the clear sky while using mantra? Do you focus on the mantra? Well, you kind of have to do both. You have to go back and forth in a way. One of my techniques is a different way to focus on the breath. On the inhale, I envision the word in, and for the exhale, I envision the word out. Seems to help keep me in the moment. If it's keeping you in the moment, then that's good. Each of my chakras were blocked this morning. Reiki helped, but wow, does that make it tough to meditate? I don't know anything about Reiki. I mean, chakras being blocked, I guess, is, I don't know that much about those either. I think it's tough to meditate, period. It goes against everything we've been doing for our whole lives and prior lifetimes. We forgot the 9 purifying breaths today. I forgot them. Francesca just is saying, I didn't do it. After learning the breaths, I found it improved the quality. In the last couple of weeks, they've become distracting. I've gone straight into meditation. I don't know. I forgot. I'm not. I encourage it. I find it really helpful, and it's a really good way to start to connect to subtle body. Probably because before this class on Sundays, I do another class where I'm a participant, a student in with our friend Brian, who was here, and I didn't do that today because he was doing some other work, and that might have thrown me off. We should always do that. Maybe in the future, Nick, we could put, after we do the 4 measurables, maybe you could put something on the screen, 9 breaths, so silly me doesn't forget in the future. I like the notion of reminding ourselves that we are meditating, and maybe we're not waiting to arrive at a moment when we feel we are meditating well. Yeah. What helps me too is repeating a mantra and focusing on the breath when the automatic thoughts can feel too distracting. For today's meditation, was able to solely focus on the breath by the end, which you say is humbling. Thank you. Yeah, very often, as practitioners, we have this poverty mentality, meaning by poverty, I mean, we always feel like we suck or that we always feel like we'll never get it. You know what I mean? That whatever kind of things moving towards are, not possible. And I don't think that's a good attitude. I don't think you should have, the opposite, where there's an arrogant saying that I'm meditating, I'm this great practitioner and this enlightened being, and I'm on the verge of enlightenment. Well, all that kind of stuff is equally as wrong, or equally as misleading and a misconception. But you know, that's why we named this new segment of our class 103. Just to say, hey, we've been here for a year. You know. I bet there's some of you who probably thought you'd never be able to commit to a regular meditation practice. I certainly felt that when I started. You know, I remember the first. I never thought I would be able to become someone who does this on a regular basis, meditation. So there's something in that, and just saying this is what I'm doing. Um, That's what I mean by poverty mentality. We're looking at ourselves as like, I don't mean poverty in terms of poor, people in poverty, economically. I mean our own mental attitude towards ourselves. I've been adding the 9 purifying breaths. I'm glad you are, Claudia, because I forgot today. To the beginning of my daily meditation practice, I find it really helps me settle in. It does. I apologize. I appreciate our gathering here once a week. Something about the group energy. Yeah, the group energy is good. It helps. It makes a commitment. It certainly helped me. My wife wants me to recommend a book on Buddhist philosophy. What would you recommend? Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. I feel that in time, my meditation practice got more effective. Sometimes only 10 minutes is enough to feel refreshed in my mind. I mostly go into that space that at the beginning of the meditation is me being a blue sky. Quickly, it is just a space that I am part of. Yeah, that's the spaciousness that we're talking about. There's no particular name of sensation for it, just kind of allowing space from where I can see my thought, hear music that goes on in my head, my tinnitus. Cool. Well, as long as you recognize that and let that music leave that music where it is and not get sucked in by it too. That's our practice as well. Heather, the quality of my meditation is good. I use the mind looking at mind technique. To be honest, I struggle with meditating outside of class, but when I do, I feel better for it. Yeah. Having that delay button before my thoughts is a good skill to have. I just need to do it more. Yeah. Good to hear that. Starting with the 9 purifying breaths leading into 15-20 minute meditation session has been helpful. Tonglen breathing throughout the day has also been helpful. Yes, we've done Tonglen in this class. Victoria taught this. And that's, when we were talking about bringing these practices into daily life and relating to our world through practice, you can do anything can start to become practice. I live mostly in New York City, and you see a lot of people who are suffering, because of poverty and homelessness and mental illness, drug addiction, and not even that necessarily, just people who are suffering under negative emotion and Tonglen, is a way where, you can't just go into everybody's business all the time because that's kind of insane, really. But you can, we're talking about the Buddhas being able to do. The Buddhas have spontaneous activity, so they know how to interact and act. That's in a way that's always correct. We don't have that. We're not enlightened. But we do want to cultivate wisdom that knows how to act. And Tonglen's a way of beginning to do that. What is the name of the Instagram page? Pema Lotus, Pema, right? Pema Lotus, Pemalotus. Why is anxiety so much common among youth and teenagers? Very good question. Very good question. I think it's a combination of a lot of things, a lot of causes and conditions. Compare teenagers of today to when I was a teenager. Okay, I became a teenager in 1979. Teenagers today are bombarded with way more information on a constant basis and way more communication, are in contact and communicate with way more sources of information and way more people. Their minds are occupied with news, with images, with ideas. I mean, exponentially more than prior generations, I think. And I think it's to the point where it's so much that it's really hard to process and causes things to move at a speed that causes a lot of aggression and confusion. Another reason may be because of all this information, what is considered meaningful and important and worthy of effort and attention is distorted, which causes inferiority, insecurity, low self-esteem. Then you also have, through social media and things, there's kind of these anonymous forums or group forums, even in their own community, where people have a certain level of anonymity and access to say things that are very negative, bullying, cyberbullying, online bullying, either from the anonymous or even people in their own community, on a much bigger level than if you just are without that kind of channels of communication. That's why I was saying, we need to educate young people. And I think in these practices. At the same time, I find that the young generation, I have a lot of hope for them because I think there's also one other aspect of access to this information that can be good, that awakens their minds as to what's important, like things like the environment, things like racism and homophobia and stuff like that, which I find this younger generation is way hipper about and way less ignorant of, which is hopeful. But I think it's very hard to be a young person, teenager in this modern world, very hard. And we who are older generations, I think, need to invest our best intentions and best efforts into, helping them with education and opportunity in very healthy ways. Why can creative outlets make us feel similarly to meditation? Because when you're really engaged in the creative process, or sometimes you feel that like making love or something like that, where you're completely in the moment and you step out of that stream of chatter and self-reflection and something. Sometimes it's anything that can really anything where we can get completely absorbed in the moment. But those things often, unless we start to practice, those things can be kind of out of our control and random and subject to a lot of different fluctuations, which is why we need the stability of practice. Meditation reduces my profound panic attacks through breathing. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that. For me, meditation reminds me that everything is temporary, including our thoughts, and they will pass, and the only focus I need to remember is compassion. That's a good way to look at things. Your concept of imagining people as Buddhas or even mothers and fathers, since we have all been each other's family at one time or another, that's a Buddhist point of view, yes. Helps with compassion. And the Buddhist belief that there is no self reminds me that we are each other and need to do our best to treat each other as such, including ourselves, because being good to ourselves helps being good to others. Yes, I agree, Melissa. Meditation has helped me to be mindful of my thoughts and actions and know that I can let negative ones go. I've been working on focusing less on what I feel I haven't done perfect, more on keeping my focus on my intentions of compassion for everyone and myself. So much more I could write, but I think your class plants seeds of compassion. Yeah, this is what we're trying to do, you know. Very simple way. You know, the two truths in Buddhism is the ultimate and the relative, and the ultimate, like we're talking about these, you know, that we're already enlightened and when in non-dual, not in interdependence, and that kind of, and then the relative truth of being in this human form, body impermanent, and things like that. We have to kind of come at it almost both ways. The ultimate one, very, very hard to relate to, but almost like that fake it till you make it mentality is, you know, if we start to just taste that a little bit, like in that homework assignment we're talking about. The events and loss of life, the hurricane as people flee, I live in relative safety. Yes, for now. You know what I mean? For now, you know, you may be in safety, but, you know, there's no place on earth that is completely safe. The nature of our existence is impermanent. We're all going to die. We're all going to get, you know, probably get sick if we don't die now because of some calamity or something. We'll probably get sick and die as we age. I was questioning how I can be so lucky to be safe and sound. I don't know if it's luck. It's, you know, your karma is to be safe for this moment. But like I said, you know, I'm in Florida. 2 buildings away was where the building collapsed in June. Those people that morning probably felt safe and sound hearing about some other event on another side of the world. And that night, many of them were dead. Safe and sound is a completely impermanent state. So your karma is to be safe and sound or in a place on this earth right now that is, and your karma is not to be in New Orleans or wherever that hurricane is going to hit, but everything is impermanent. Our task is to provide compassion for all sentient beings. That's one of our tasks, yes. How do we do that is the question. I've been finding in my meditation it takes me quite a long time to begin. It doesn't last long. In a 15-minute session, I might have a fully clean mind. Well, fully clean mind for 2 to 3 minutes. Often there's a song stuck in my head. Okay, but you begin at the beginning of 15 minutes. You don't begin meditating when your mind is clear. You have to let go of that. So you sit down to meditate, that's the beginning. So we just did 15 minutes. That meditation session didn't begin 10 minutes in when you had a 2-minute clarity. Because that's kind of a negative that can get in the way. You know, that could be a negative perception of this stuff. So meditating actually in one of the languages, I don't know if it's Tibetan, in Tibetan it's Gom, G-O-M. It might be, actually means habituation, habituating. Habituating ourselves to sit, adopt the posture, Focus on the breathing, work with the thoughts. It's not habituating 2 minutes of fully clear mind. So remember that, it's important. When you can't let something go and it triggers anger, it's deeper than that it triggers something. This has helped tremendously, put things in perspective, especially what's going on in the world. Emotions are very hard, you know. I mean, we work with thought, but emotion is like supercharged thought. Like if we imagine a cloud in the sky of, in the sky of the mind, emotions like a storm, like a hurricane or something. It could be that, when we're in the grips of emotion, uh, it is very hard to see out, it's like they say like you're in the grips of anger, 90%, you're seeing things distorted to 90% or something, Um, but we can work with emotion the same way we do here. It takes more practice. But once we start to be able to transcend and transform emotion into wisdom, we start to make a lot of progress. I find Buddhist practice of meditation beneficial. I find reminding of the breath is helpful. Someone who has such a busy brain, we all have busy brains. You're not unique, Aaron. I'll tell you that. Everybody, the brain is busy by, that's its nature. You speaking occasionally during the meditation helps recenter me. That's my positive feeling towards this. Are you reading anything Buddhist? I'm reading Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's new book called Magic, Cynicism and Magic, which I like a lot. Is there a specific meaning or purpose to the mudra hand placement I've seen you use during meditation? Palm over each hand, thumbs down. Oh, this. No, that's just something I've learned to kind of settle, part of settling, You can also do this. Some people do this. I don't know if there's a specific meaning. There may be, but I find it kind of just grounding, because it's the body you want to just ground so you can have that quiet physically. I've been questioning my role in light of the suffering experienced this week by so many. Why should I be so lucky? Well, we addressed that before. It's not luck. Compassion is not really luck. Karma is not luck. It's based on prior causes and conditions, sometimes from lifetimes before. And like I said, you're not suffering this week, but you will be at some point, unfortunately. That's the first noble truth in life, in samsaric existence. There is suffering, and you will. Everyone, all of your loved ones at some point will be separated from you, either by death or other reasons. Your body will break down at some point. You will get sick at some point, and you will die. We have to remember these things, You may live in a nice house, and, you may get, go broke. And I'm not saying this will happen, but this is what happens to people. You know what I mean? Lose your job. You can't make payments. You have to live in a house that's not so nice. You may wind up being home. Anything can happen to anyone, and it will, and it does. Things will happen. So that's why we have to kind of, that. So what do we do with that knowledge? Well, we can be more compassionate to others to know that they are and will suffer if they're not in this moment. When we're having trouble meditating, distracting thoughts and mental or physical pain helps to realize we're not alone in this situation. It helps to breathe that discomfort, pain of all beings feeling like this, and breathing out ease and peace for oneself and all these things. Yes, like you're doing a giant Tonglen, sure. Good book for teenagers about meditation and anxiety. I don't have one off the top of my head. The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama could be a good one to start with. Can you speak what it is to take refuge? The official, if you will, ceremony of becoming a Buddhist, you take refuge vows, meaning, when you take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, in the teachings, and the Sangha, which is the first also to our teacher and our co-Buddhists, community of Buddhists, because we know that until we reach enlightenment, we're in samsaric existence and we're going to suffer, right? So we take refuge from the suffering of this world in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. So when you take those vows in the presence of your teacher or a teacher, the Lama, that means you are committing to being a Buddhist. Okay, folks, thank you for today. We're going to dedicate the merit of today's class, the benefit of all beings. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Nick Solidio, for your kindness and generosity. Take care, okay?